The silent servants of Panem. How social stratification influenced Panem. Panem was never truly at peace. Before we talk about rebellion, war, or the Hunger Games, we need to understand something crucial. Panem was never truly at peace. What the capital called peace was simply unchallenged suffering. Panem is made up of 13 districts and one capital. The capital is where it is good to be. Young, vibrant, great infrastructure, good roads. They have excess of everything. The capital treats everyone in the districts as garbage. The districts were overworked and underpaid, their labor sustaining a nation that denied them opportunity, mobility, and power. The pain existed long before rebellion. Resistance simply had not yet found a unified voice. Panem was silently enduring suffering long before the first rebellion. The capital was home to those who could afford comfort. While it may have been theoretically possible to move to the capital if one had enough money, the system ensured that such wealth was unreachable for district citizens. Wages were deliberately kept low, education was controlled, access to resources was tightly restricted. Capital citizens were not just rich, they were generational wealth. Wealth passed down for generations and revolves around families, and that wealth was constantly preserved and updated by exploiting the districts and their resources. Capital citizens were the founding families, early investors, political leaders, and entrepreneurs who first understood the value of Panem's mineral and human resources. They secured power early, while the rest of the population was reduced to labor. This created a rigid hierarchy. The capital accumulated wealth, access, and influence. The district supplied labor, resources, and obedience. The people of the district were not citizens in practice, they were workers. And once a population is reduced to workers, it becomes easy to justify every cruelty as necessary and every deprivation as policy. Stratifications among the districts. Inequalities did not exist only between the capital and the district. It existed within the districts themselves, and this internal hierarchy played a major role in the failure of the first rebellion. Some districts benefited just enough from the capital to feel protected. Others were crushed just enough to feel powerless. This imbalance ensured disunity. The capital didn't need everyone to be loyal. It only needed enough districts to hesitate, enough districts to fear losing what little they had, enough districts to look sideways at each other instead of upwards at the capital. District 1, the wealthiest district of Panem. They specialize in luxury goods, jewelry, fashion and decorative items, wigs, hair dyes, beauty products. They are materialistic and a disservice to humanity. District 1 is classified as wealthy compared to other districts. The capital valued this district because of the luxury they provide. They could potentially take refined or leftover resources and turn them into beauty and profit. While they were not truly wealthy by capital standards, their quality of life was far higher than most districts. They were the wealthiest district, living off the scraps of excess and generosity of the capital. They had better food access, less physically brutal labor, higher social status. Because of this, District 1 likely had little interest in the first rebellion. They were well fed, relatively content, and had more to lose in war. This complacency matters because rebellion requires sacrifice, and District 1 had been trained to believe the system was tolerable. After the dark days, District 1 was folded into the Hunger Games system in a unique way. Their children were encouraged to volunteer under the illusion of honor and service to the capital. In return, the capital maintained subtle generosity towards them, shielding them from the worst hardship faced by poorer districts. District 1 would have better odds of winning the games because they were likely to receive more sponsors. Their children were trained as carriers, prepared for combat, conditioned to see the games as glory, given controlled advantages. But this privilege was fragile. District 1 failed to understand that the capital needed them only to sustain its culture of luxury. They were no more valued than any other district. Their role as carriers deepened hostility between districts. They were often the first to initiate violence, making the spectacle more entertaining for capital audiences. As Hamish later warns Katniss, alliance is impossible, but never with the carriers. This division was intentional. The capital benefited from districts seeing each other as enemies instead of allies. Their role as carriers in the 10th Hunger Games was not fully established. Their only advantage then was that they were well fed, which was not really an advantage because in the Hunger Games, being able to fast is a better advantage than being well fed before the games. This may not have been fully established then because no one enjoyed watching the games. Coriolanus may have put this structure in place as a means of dividing the districts among themselves. District 2, Masonry, wealthy districts. They're in charge of stonework, building work. They're in charge of all the structures in Panem, all the beautiful structures of the capital. During the Dark Days, District 2 fought alongside the capital against the other districts. This alliance was not accidental. District 2 is known for the structural infrastructure of Panem. Their industry had a lot to lose and they may have been content with their conditions. Originally, District 13 was the capital's primary ammunition producers and military strongholds. The Snow family itself had investment in District 13's weapon production, which indicates how strategically important the district once was. District 13 was not just another district, it was the backbone of capital military power. The first rebellion began in District 13. Whether its citizens were starving or relatively well provided for remains unclear, but what is clear is that they were heavily controlled, highly militarized, and essential. District 13 possessed an enormous amount of ladle resources. With that kind of power, it is possible they promised the other districts a better life in exchange for support during the rebellion. This does not necessarily mean the rebellion was morally driven. It may have been strategic. The capital was unable to completely defeat District 13 without destroying itself. Instead, it erased the district from public knowledge and restructured its military system entirely. Ammunition production was transferred from District 13 to District 2. Military authorities was relocated. The capital established its new base in the north, a mountain fortress described as nearly impossible to penetrate. District 2 replaced District 13 as the capital military heart. This transition solidified District 2's position. They became responsible for weapon production. They trained peacekeepers across Panem. They enforced capital rule directly. Figures like Mr. Plains illustrate the internal divide this created. Though district-born, he aligned himself with the capital rather than joining rebellion efforts, investing in ammunition production for capital forces. This suggests that even during the rebellion, district citizens were not united. Some benefited enough from the capital proximity to choose loyalty over resistance. After the Dark Days, District 2 was rewarded for preserving capital control. They were promised continued generosity and elevated status, such as peacekeepers' position, including the latter privilege of volunteering in the Hunger Games. However, evidence from the 10th Hunger Games, particularly Marcus' resistance, suggests that this system was not yet fully established and may have been formalized later. It is possible that Coriolanus Snow himself played a role in refining this structure, using the games as a tool to keep district divided, forcing them to fight one another rather than unite against the capital. District 3, intelligence without power. I mean, who wants to be there? I want to be intelligent, powerful, and rich. District 3 specialized in technology and electronics and fairly poor. Unlike poorer districts, they were not defined by starvation, but by surveillance, fear, and controlled usefulness. Their danger to the capital lay not in physical strength, but in intelligence. Coriolanus Snow understood this. Beatty demonstrated exactly why District 3 was feared. He won the Hunger Games by creating an electrical trap that killed 6 tributes at once, turning the capital's technology against itself. Later, he tampered with the capital communication system, a direct act of defiance. Anyway, this is based on the book Sunrise on the Reaping. The capital responded not by killing Beatty, but by punishing his son, Ampart. Beatty was forced to mentor his own child in the games, knowing Ampart would die. Beatty was too valuable to kill, according to what Plutarch said to Hamish in Sunrise on the Reaping, but never too valuable to break. The message was clear: save the capital or your loved ones will suffer. Whereas also from District 3 won the 49th Hunger Games through pure intelligence. She outsmarted a reflective, disorienting arena by identifying a blind spot near a rock by the lake. Rather than fight, she hid, waited, and allowed the arena to eliminate her competitors. The final tribute accidentally killed himself trying to reach her. This kind of victory was deeply threatening. While Iris did not glorify the games, she exposed the arena as a system that could be understood, analyzed, and bypassed. Her win showed that the capital's greatest weapon, control of environment and spectacle, was vulnerable. Because of this, District 3 was never celebrated like the career districts. Recognition creates influence, and influence leads to rebellion. The capital feared what District 3 could become if given even a small amount of power. So they were suppressed through silence. District 3 was allowed to exist only as long as it remained invisible, building arenas, maintaining systems, and reinforcing capital defenses without ever being acknowledged as architects. They knew their value, but value without power changes nothing. Now that I've got up to this amount of audience, I will go further in details. Let's go into District 4. District 4, sustained by sea, secured by favor. District 4 was the fishing district responsible for supplying seafood to the capital. Fairly wealthy, their production included high-demand luxury foods such as lobster, crab, and other marine resources, as well as materials like salt and sand. Seafood was not a necessity for survival in Panem. It was a luxury, and that alone made District 4 extremely valuable. Beyond food, District 4 functioned as a port district. Their proximity to the sea allowed for trade routes, transportation of goods, and import and export operation that further boosted their economic importance. Their relationship with the ocean made them indispensable to the capital's access to variety, excess, and global-style abundance. Because of this, District 4 was treated differently. District 4 citizens were highly skilled in surviving nature. Their lives revolved around the sea, which required strength, adaptability, and technical knowledge. They were experienced in fishing and navigation, rope making and knotwork, and using tridents and aquatic weapons. These skills translated well into the Hunger Games, giving District 4 tributes a natural advantage, especially in arenas involving water or open terrain. One of their tributes, Annie, won the 70th Hunger Games because she outlasted the others in swimming when an earthquake broke a dam which flooded the arena. Unlike poorer districts, District 4 was well-fed. Food scarcity did not define their daily existence. This matters because starvation breeds desperation, and desperation fuels rebellion. District 4 did not experience that level of deprivation. As a result, they never fully joined the first rebellion. Their needs were met, their skills were valued, and the generosity they received from the capital was enough to keep them content. Much like District 1 and 2, District 4 aligned itself with the capital. Their children were encouraged to volunteer for the Hunger Games, not through force, but through ideology. From a young age, they were sold the idea that volunteering was an honor, a service to the capital, and a sign of strength and worth. They were trained in confidence, survival skills, and combat advantages that set them apart from other districts. This favoritism created the illusion of choice, while still serving capital interests. District 4 tributes often functioned as carriers, not because they were brutal by nature, but because the system rewarded early violence, preparation, and confidence. Their participation reinforced the idea that some districts were stronger or better than others. While these districts enjoyed better food, training, and status, others struggled simply to survive. This imbalance bred resentment among district citizens and deepened distrust between them. Instead of uniting against the capital, the districts were encouraged to measure themselves against one another. District 4 represents another example of how the capital maintained control by rewarding usefulness, by offering comfort instead of freedom, by turning privilege into loyalty. They were not free, but they were comfortable enough not to rebel. District 5, power without privilege. This is a very poor district. I don't want to be there, to be honest. District 5 focused on power generation, including hydroelectric, solar, and nuclear energy. Their industry was not glamorous, but it was essential. Power was the backbone of Panem. Without it, industries would collapse, luxury would disappear, and the capital itself would cease to function. Yet, District 5 received no preferential treatment. Their work was vital but not luxurious, and in Panem, value was measured not by necessity but by spectacle. Energy is what allowed the Hunger Games arenas to function, particularly in the games following the 10th Hunger Games, when technology became more advanced. Surveillance systems, environmental manipulation, force fields, and holographic defenses all depended on power generation. Every district depended on District 5, and yet District 5 was treated as expendable. They were essential but deliberately kept insecure. Luxury districts were praised, military districts were rewarded, energy districts were ignored. The imbalance ensured resentment flowed sideways from district to district instead of upwards towards the capital. District 5 demonstrates that in Panem, being essential was not enough. Without visibility or privilege, power meant nothing. District 6, movement without mobility. Poor district. Tell me why this district is poor. Because if I am living in this district, I won't be poor. I refuse to be poor, producing all these hovercrafts, posh vehicles, and still be poor. District 6 was responsible for transportation and vehicle production. This included trains, cargo transport systems, and hovercrafts, the very infrastructure that allowed Panem to function as a unified nation. District 6 moves everything, goods between districts, resources to the capital, peacekeepers and military forces, and tributes to the Hunger Games. Without District 6, Panem would not move, and yet District 6 was never treated as essential. What they produced left the districts. Their survival depended on wages. Wages intentionally kept low. Vehicle production required enormous manpower, long hours, and technical skill. District 6 likely worked just as hard as favored districts, if not harder, yet received none of the benefits. They don't even have access to the cars they produce. A failure in transportation would cripple the capital. The capital understood this, which is why District 6 was never allowed to understand it. Their importance was minimized. Their role was framed as replaceable. Their labor was normalized to the point of invisibility. Resentment flowed sideways, district to district. District 6 built movements for a nation that ensured they themselves never moved forward. District 7, strength without reward. Poor districts. This is the district that I will never go. District 7 was the lumber district. You're more than welcome to go. I can go to B&M, get you some axe so that you go if you want to, but me, I'm out. District 7 supplied timber for Panem's structural infrastructure and furniture, the literal framework upon which both the capital and the districts were built. In theory, District 7 had access to forests and wood. In practice, that access was tightly controlled. They worked the forest, but the forest did not belong to them. Lumber production required immense physical labor. Trees were felled by hand, demanding strength, endurance, and precision. That is why Joanna Messing was exceptionally skilled with an axe. Her survival skills were a direct extension of her labor. Despite the intensity of their work, District 7 citizens were likely underpaid and underfed. Their labor benefited the capital far more than it benefited themselves. District 7 represents one of Panem's most overlooked realities. Service continued even when strength was gone. They simply endured all this. District 8. This is a textile district. They specialize in fabric production. I don't want to live there. I don't want to work there. But I can definitely manage to visit there to get some fabric. Who is with me? District 8 is a poor district. District 8 was responsible for textile production. Fabric was a major part of capital culture, fashion, excess, and visual spectacle. Yet, District 8 never benefited from the luxury. They touched fine materials every day but wore poor quality clothing themselves. They were not designers. They were not consumers. They were laborers. District 8 produced textiles not only for capital fashion but also for peacekeeper uniforms, clothing worn by the very forces that oppressed them. Their labor directly sustained their own suppression. Twail once explained to Katniss that she worked a 4-hour shift in a peacekeeper uniform factory after already completing her full-time job as a teacher. Bonnie, a child, worked a 4-hour shift after school. Either all citizens were required to labor regardless of profession, or wages were so insufficient that multiple shifts were necessary just to survive. Either way, labor in District 8 was compulsory, exhausting, and inescapable. The second rebellion began in District 8, not because they were strong, but because they were already broken. They lacked weapons and power, yet they rose anyway. Their uprising was not strategic, it was desperate. District 8 was waiting for a symbol. They found it in Katniss Everdeen. Katniss' kindness towards Rue revealed something the Capitol tried to erase: inter-district empathy. Before the uprising, District 8 served silently like every other district until silence broke. District 9, producing food while starving. This is also a poor district. I wouldn't want to live in District 9 because I want to eat food, especially if I'm the one producing it. District 9 cultivated and processed grain, used to make bread, flour, and basic meals. Not entirely special because 11 is like the wholesale production. So I would say they are highly disadvantaged because it is so sad going hungry after working so hard to cultivate and harvest these crops. Every district depended on grain, and yet the people who produced it lived on the edge of starvation. The capital controlled production and distribution, taking the majority and leaving barely enough for survival. People worked long hours in fields and factories while underfed. After the dark days, the Hunger Games were implemented. Their children have to sign up for tesserae just to stay alive. Tesserae means extra grain and oil in exchange. They put their name multiple times. Hunger forced dependence. Dependence increased reaping odds. Increased odds reinforced terror. Punishment disguised as policy. District 9 is the least mentioned district in the Hunger Games and little is known about them. They are the poorest to share a border with the capital. Being hungry while there is a bounty harvest will definitely create resentment for the capital and its rule. It is no surprise that they joined the rebellion. Hungry people are angry people. I personally don't want to go there. I advise, please don't go there because I want you all to remain happy, healthy, and well-fed. District 10, producing meat without eating it. This is a poor district as well. I advise you don't go there, same as District 9. District 10 produced livestock, meat, leather, milk, eggs. Like District 9, they worked in food production. Like District 9, they were denied the resources they produced. Livestock went primarily to the capital. Meat became a symbol of abundance, not something distributed evenly. Even when products remained, they were often unaffordable to the people who raised them. A butcher who eats no meat, a herder who cannot afford milk. That contradiction defines District 10. Unlike fishing in District 4, livestock could be counted, confined, and controlled. Peacekeepers could monitor quotas and guard herds. So the capital had no incentive to offer even the illusion of generosity. Their suffering was manageable, and that is exactly why it continued. District 11, very poor district, yet they produced the largest food bank. District 11 produced enormous amounts of food, grains, fruits, orchards, dairy, cotton, one of the largest districts, one of the most productive. They are the largest district in Panem. And because food means power, District 11 was heavily policed. Rue's account reveals the truth. Farmers were not allowed to keep what they grew. Taking even small amounts was considered theft and punished brutally. People were whipped for picking up dropped grain. Children were punished for minor infractions. A boy was killed for trying to keep night vision goggles, as explained by Rue to Katniss in the 74th Hunger Games. Punishment was not proportional. It was terror-driven. The fields were full. The people were starving. Starvation was not failure of production. It was a method of control. District 11 silently served not because they were loyal, but because rebellion under constant surveillance was nearly impossible. Hunger weakened resistance, punishment discouraged defiance, but resentment grew quietly in the fields. And Rue's connection with Katniss' public mourning showed inter-district humanity. District 11 waited for the right moment to turn against the capital. They will definitely jump at any rebellion because these people need to eat and experience the joy in famine. District 12, coal, casualties, and complete neglect. District 12 mined coal, dangerous labor filled with explosion, cave-ins, illness and death. And despite this, District 12 had no hospital. They are the poorest district. They relied on herbalists and apothecaries. Katniss' mother was known for medical knowledge, not because the capital provided healthcare, but because the district was abandoned. Coal mining should come with hazard pay, medical care, compensation. None of it existed. When miners died, families were widowed, children unsupported, no compensation, no acknowledgement. Debt was absorbed into daily life. Wages could not sustain families. Tessere forced children to gamble their life for survival. Hunger defined everything. The hope existed because survival required breaking the law. Katniss and Gale constantly sneaked out to hunt game to sell for bread. Peter once threw bread to Katniss because she was starving. Coal mining mattered, but it was easily controlled. Production could be monitored. Distribution could be rationed. And what would district citizens do with leftover coal? Nothing useful for daily survival. District 12 had no leverage, no proximity, no surplus worth keeping. It also suffered disproportionately under Snow punishment, following defiance relentlessly. Lucy Gray erased histories, Hamish defiance in the games. District 12 suffered more than any other district. Even the air was not even clear to breathe, grey as the coal. Finally, District 13, ammunition and graphite production. District 13 was not built to feed Panem, it was built to defend it. Before the Dark Days, District 13 was responsible for ammunition production, the place where defense equipment and level tools was manufactured. And that matters because District 13 wasn't like the district the capital could keep weak through neglect. District 13 had weapons within reach, and here is the contradiction. District 13 cannot have been allowed to hold that much level power without being heavily controlled. But they also could not have been fully respected because the system depends on district being replaceable. So District 13 likely existed under militarized control, heavily regulated, tightly enforced, disciplined by structure. And it is believable they were still underpaid or undercared for, because in Panem, value does not guarantee dignity. It only guarantees usefulness, and usefulness is not the same thing as power. When you know what you could do, what you could become, yet you still live under someone else's authority, the desire that forms isn't always freedom. Sometimes it's control. During the Dark Days, the capital won back every district apart from 13. They destroyed the surface building, but they knew the underground could not be destroyed. Not completely, not without destroying themselves in the process and wasting more resources. So they reached a ceasefire bargain. The capital gets its narrative, its chosen lie about what happened to District 13. In exchange, District 13 is left alone, and this is where erasure becomes one of the most powerful weapons in Panem. Because controlling a nation is not only about force, it's about what people are allowed to believe. If Panem believes District 13 is dead, they never imagine it as an option. They never search for it. They never unify around it. Erasure is strategic suffocation. We do not truly know their reasons for rebellion, but it is possible they rebelled because they believed they could win and start leading Panem. If they held little resources and were still underpaid, still controlled, still beneath capital rule, their rebellion becomes tempting, not only as liberation, but as takeover. Because Panem teaches everyone the same lesson: power is safety, and District 13 had power. It's even possible, though uncertain, that District 13 had been favored in certain ways, like District 1, 2, and 4, but that favor wasn't enough. Favor is not equality, is not respect, is a leash made of comfort. If District 13 had capability and discipline and military infrastructure, it's possible they didn't want freedom under the system. They wanted the system. They wanted to rule instead. Coin, the proof of what District 13's leadership could become. The leaders of District 13 may not be as good as we thought, judging by the leader who eventually represents it. Coin locked up Katniss' prep team for days because they stole bread and stabbed them as punishment. Though it is understandable that Coin and the citizens of 13 lived under strict rules for years, it seems like she intentionally punished the prep team that way as a small act of revenge for the capital. Coin wanted justice by wanting Hunger Games victors to be persecuted, victors who are victims. She wanted Katniss to die too because Katniss is a threat to her rise in power. She just wanted to punish anyone previously aligned with the capital. She wanted another Hunger Games but with the capital children. And that is the most revealing thing, because that means she did not reject the games as a concept. She only wanted to change who suffered under them. She ordered the bombing of children to turn capital people against Coriolanus Snow and win the war. Children became leverage. If coin was given all these opportunities, unchecked authority, long-term control, she may have turned as bad as Coriolanus. Power-driven, not motive-driven. And District 13 becomes the final contradiction of Panem. Not proof that rebellion is pure, proof that power is contagious, and that overthrowing a dictator does not automatically remove dictatorship, because oppression doesn't disappear. Sometimes it just changes uniforms. So District 13 leaves us with the warning. Panem proves again and again, never oppress a man with a gun in hand. And this is the part people miss when they reduce Panem to capital versus district. Panem was not held together by peace. It was held together by stratified suffering. Some districts were comforted just enough to become complicit. Some were punished just enough to become powerless. Some were controlled through fear. Some were controlled through hunger. Some were controlled through invincibility. And because suffering was unequal, unity was impossible until the very end. The capital didn't just force districts into labor. It made them compete for survival. It made them resent each other. It turned them into enemies and then staged their hatred as entertainment. The Hunger Games weren't only punishment, they were a ritual of division, proved that districts would kill each other before they killed the capital. And even when rebellion finally came, Panem's greatest tragedy is that it revealed something darker. The opposite of the capital is not automatically freedom, because if your only model of power is oppression, then even liberation can be built with the same tools, just pointed at different people. So when we talk about the silent servants of Panem, we are not only talking about labor, we are talking about how a society can be structured to make suffering feel normal. How privilege can be used as a leash, how hunger can be used as muzzle, how fear can be used as law, and how the most dangerous lie the capital ever told was not that the district deserved it, but that this was peace. Because peace was never the absence of war, it was the absence of resistance.